I should know that, so.
You want to try to have a quick read?
Yes.
Oh, you got it?
Oh, state? Yeah, I know, yeah, I should just,
Oh.
I'm always,
If anybody needs a quick read, I printed it out.
That was from, this was what you emailed yesterday?
Yep.
I
The
didn't even.
minutes and the
Oh, okay.
TIF data.
I didn't even look at yesterday's emails yet.
All right.
Oh, there's Ted.
Oh,
All right. Hey, Sal.
sorry, I'm late.
Wow, what a great turnout.
No, we just started.
Great.
Morning, Ted.
All set, thank you.
All right.
Yes.
All right, so we call the meeting to order. The first action item I have is to approve the previous minutes from August and September, so we'll do August first. First, any discussion on the minutes from August? The motion to approve the minutes. Second?
I second.
Okay. Seth and John, all in favor? Okay,
Abstaining.
so that's passed. We'll go to the September minutes. Any discussion? Okay, the motion to approve the September minutes.
I have to abstain.
I'll move we.
Can we have a second?
Second.
John?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Actually, I
Okay.
can't remember, was I here for
Abstain.
August? I'll have to abstain from that one.
So the minutes are approved. Good. So that takes us to, really, it's going to end up being Bill's report, the discussion on what's going on with the TIF, the latest TIF report. So if you want to, I did attach that to the minutes, if there's anything to report or any changes.
As per the discussion last time, we made some minor modifications to the work project. Tara, you sent out a list that you combed through the comp plan, and would you just go through that quickly? There was one item in there in particular that the comp plan says long-term for this committee to start looking at a tourist kind of plan.
Oh, yes.
And that's something we need to put in as a separate line item. But if you wouldn't mind just going through some of your suggestions on that there, because that's one that I missed, and that definitely.
So as an additional project, you mean, or?
No, as an long-term economic project, kind of a tourist plan or
Centric.
tourist strategy for the town.
Okay, good.
So all I did was, sent to Max and Bill items from the comp plan that I thought might line up with the TIF. So on page 10 of the comp plan, the Economic Development Committee shall create a Waldoboro tourist development strategy to identify new businesses and opportunities to attract tourists. So that's on page 10. So I can't remember, I have it in my email, but just I had added that, I think in at least municipal-wide investments.
Yeah.
So just
Yep.
for anyone's consideration there.
Well done.
What was
Yeah,
that called,
no.
a Waldoboro Tourist Attraction Plan? Is that-
Develop-
Tourist development strategy?
Strategy.
Development,
Yeah, that's an excellent recommend, yeah.
Tourist Development Strategy.
This would be a sink for the funds as opposed to,
Well, no, this would be one of the uses for the funds.
that's what I meant to
Yeah,
say.
yeah. I mean, some of it would be
So
pretty
is it
soft cost.
A
but-
strategy that spends the money, or is
No, what it would
developing
be
the
is
strategy?
to help, the committee would develop a strategy, and then implementing it, we can use the funds for on that there. But the strategy development is something we relatively inexpensively, here. But if there's things that we would implement, whatever they be, signage or events, promotion, I'm just off the top of my head.
Right.
But that's something we would have to come up with on that. Or even connections to what, the Pumpkin Fest happens in Dharmascata, Booth Bay connects with it, Waldoboro is.
So
right
why don't
next
we
door.
raise that as new business, and maybe we get it on our agenda moving forward, just in terms of keeping it in front of us, and
Should be,
I kind of like
should
that
be
idea
reasonably
too.
aware indefinitely.
I mean, if it's part of the comp plan requirement, then it
Comes up
should
all
be
the
here.
time, yeah.
Yes.
Great idea.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Thank you, Tara.
All right.
Were there any other ones specifically, or was that the big one?
The other ones I think we have in there already, but as I read your list, I said, geez, maybe we can separate, because sometimes we lump things together, and maybe we can just separate it out.
The only one I don't remember seeing was just the incentives for commercial districts, but maybe you found that somewhere else that I wasn't readily seeing.
Yeah, I think we envision that as more of a zoning
Okay.
thing on that.
Or is that a tax thing, or?
No, it would just be kind of performance standards which give preferential dimensional treatment to businesses that, say, locate next to an existing business or make use of the rear of the property, things like that.
A business coming to town might save a year or two moving into the appropriate zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Or an incentive to, instead of developing only along the road frontage, pushing the development back or allowing access for future development in the back.
Okay.
That's usually a problem with a lot of larger developments.
So is it a fair thing to say that the zoning that we have today can be inhibitive to new business coming in, and we need to look at different?
Not necessarily the zoning per se, but the
Land use.
the performance standards that deal with, like, things like setback, dimensional standards, parking, things like that, landscape requirements, so that, say, if you push your development back in the lot, you reduce the need for a lot of landscaping, if you provide buffers along the side, natural buffers along the side, all of those things reduce cost. You can give density benefits, and, usually, in all zones, we have a density cap, say 30% of the lot, just for sake of argument.
Right.
So if someone builds at the rear lot, do we increase the density to 50% or something like that?
It's
So they have-
incentives.
Yeah, it's an
for
incentive.
people to,
But I'm still confused, though. Is it, do you want to change the ordinances the way they are now?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah.
To reflect that?
yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the, there's a whole host of items for
This may
recommendations.
be the right time to ask the question. One of the things that we were planning on doing was having a committee to look at, and so far,
Yeah.
it sounds like we don't have enough volunteers to assemble it.
Well, we have 7?
7, I believe.
Yeah,
I think every one of them might have been a resident of one part of town.
so we've got,
Yeah, we need just a broad no, it's a broad representation. We need a broad
It's
representation.
not a committee.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yeah.
get the word out there. We
Yeah.
set a committee of at least 10 to 15 people
Right.
minimum.
And
we
also
need to get
broad
moving on it.
representation.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could give me some details and I can bring it up at one of our next
Good
WBA
idea.
meetings.
Good.
When is the
John,
next?
24th,
you
next
submitted.
Wednesday.
Tara,
You're gonna love
are
it.
you on that?
Oh, yeah.
Did you volunteer for that?
Visitors.
I didn't volunteer.
All right.
Bring it to the room.
Jen, I think, volunteered.
What's that for?
For the land use committee?
Oh,
Didn't you volunteer?
I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys about
All
that,
right.
so we'll have to talk about what you need. And
Would this be part of the planning board, or where would this?
No, this is a
No,
separate.
this is a
committee.
separate
The
committee.
official word I'm getting on what's going on that is that the planning board is still working on further definitions necessary before that committee.
No.
Okay. Just so you know what I've heard.
What the planning board's doing with the shoreline ordinances is separate
Okay,
from all
then
this.
there's no reason for a delay then.
Except to get a broad representation of people
Okay.
to volunteer.
We just need,
We need double the number, we
Yeah.
need up to 15,
Well,
and we
that's a
need a
good reason
broad
to
representation.
improve
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so we just haven't,
Just
I
waiting
mean,
on
it's, think about it, it's been a crazy tourist summer, everybody's been
Yep.
focused on work, and we're just now starting to slow down a little bit. Not quite, but
Not quite yet.
almost, no.
So the plan's working already?
Yeah, right.
But those are the changes we made in the work plan, and we'll add here these inserts. Our next step at this point is we're getting pretty close to getting a working draft out there that we can present to other people. Maybe a joint meeting with the select board, planning board, something like that, to go through. I mean, this is a working draft at this point. And the one thing that we should do as a committee is run through, within this meeting or next meeting, the list of properties that we have here to see if we need to revise them. We did, there is a cap on the number of the acreage that we can put in the district. And the district has 3, like, subcategories: the industrial park, the village area, and Route 1. And then we created a third one, which was water-dependent, commercial access areas. So Pine Street and related land area, the Dutch Neck area there, and so those are like the 3, like, sub-categories.
And it looks like this list is at 952 acres.
Yeah, we're slightly above, I
it's
think slightly.
0.65%.
very
It's a
slight.
minor thing.
So it needs to be tweaked.
Okay, all right.
In terms of timelines, there's right now 2 projects that are on paper, if not, there's serious headway being made on 2 different
I know.
projects up at the park. And I want to, with respect to timeline, is there anything I should know? Like, should I drag my feet on something? Or?
No, I think once if we can, kind of get this working draft settled, and it is a working draft, because we have a lot of pieces aren't there, and get some additional eyes on it, get some, particularly the select board. And then we can have something ready, a draft for public hearing by like February. We'll be positioned to get it in front of the June town meeting.
Okay, so if the
If it
document.
starts, if those projects start, like in the winter, we're okay. We're going to include those in.
Okay, so is it when the shovel or the backhoe hits the ground, or when the approval for a plan is?
It's the tax year that we look at, so that's why we're,
So we're already in the tax year
well,
for, what is it?
no, we will be in that.
2019.
See, they're not going to appraise that property for like a year after. After, so that's.
Okay, so it'll be the change in appraisal, not when the shovel hits the ground?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, well, that's a little reassuring in case we get.
No, we'd be able to
Yeah, right.
capture those properties, yeah. Because we're going to put it in as, this plant, the original values of your industrial park will be the undeveloped land that's attributable to
Original.
Bill, how fluid can this list be?
Well, we could, it's fluid, as long as we meet the cap and, come under the cap, and that we.
You can add and remove properties?
Oh, yeah.
Can you do it by building permit?
No. The district is fixed. It's a fixed geographic area that we submit for the TIF to be approved. So we can add properties later on, but that means to amend the TIF. You have to amend the TIF,
Go
and we're
back.
still subject to the cap.
And amendments, we go back to the voters?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So what
It's a
what
big
about
process.
removing properties that change categories? Is that, if once a property is on there and something comes along and it causes a change, how does that?
Well, for instance, that it's really not going to be used for like commercial use or something like that. Sure, yeah, we could pull it out, that's still an amendment, and that, you go through the
Still have
process.
to go through
Or
the
you could
process.
just leave it there, it's not going to perform for you in terms of, but eventually, yeah, you want to take them out, and particularly if you have other properties you want to put in and you're dealing with a tight cap.
But what we're really doing is adding a year or 2 to the approval process. When
Well, you
start.
gotta, every 6 months we vote, so,
But, I mean,
Yeah.
now you've added 6 months, and then,
to amend, yeah.
yes, et cetera.
Well, keep in mind, amending isn't a bad thing. I mean, this
No,
is a
I'm not saying that. I'm
30-year.
just thinking of the timeframes.
It's a 30-year, TIF, so you're going to make changes over time. It's just going to happen. It's just inevitable.
I'm just thinking about the poor lady down to South Waldoboro, who put a lot of money into bringing a bunch of kids in from the big cities.
Oh.
And ended up in a jam because the game didn't fit into the local
Oh, yeah.
residents.
But, we're going to need, the June town meeting, that's why the discussion of the working draft, particularly with the select board, is essential.
I
that we
think-
get them on board.
There
as
could be
quick-
some of the real positive messaging that goes out once this does go to the public. This is not fixed. Every 6 months, we have the opportunity to revisit this and make
Well, no, well,
changes.
no,
Not every
not,
6
Well,
no.
not every 6 months, but I'm
But
just
you
saying, like,
can
if we
revise
do.
it in the future.
Right, you can revise it and
It's a-
this
it's-
is what an amendment would look like and things,
Yeah.
so that is, maybe takes some of the fear out of it, even if it is a
Well,
30-year
it's a,
document.
right, and it's part of a strategic plan, just like a business has a strategic plan. You have to start at a base. Right, exactly, it's a living thing.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is not something that, I mean, again, you know, we approve the TIF, the state approves the TIF, and then we have it. It doesn't really become a working source of funds until money gets into that pot. So
Could take
it's not
years.
going to happen overnight. It's going to take, 5 to 10 years to get a significant amount of money to implement some of these things that we want.
I should have asked this at some earlier meeting probably, but the piece of land that Hannaford owns between your property and Route 1 next to the river, is that?
That's in there.
Okay.
That's in there, yeah.
I think it's
Your
Hanford.
property's in there. Yeah, they're on that there, so. Why don't, for the next meeting, why don't we take another look at that list of properties and kind of give our final working draft approval for them and,
Should we make the next meeting just a tad longer, maybe?
yeah, that would
Half
help.
hour?
Yeah, at least, yes. And that way, and then I'll put in the changes to the work plan. Now, what will happen is we have this discussion of the working draft with the select board. The next step for us, based on that conversation, is to start flushing in the actual draft that we're gonna get out there. And that will entail is, honing down this list of properties as much as possible. Same thing with the work plan. We'll have to get some better guesstimates on the cost of some of those things. They're planning guesstimates, so, and then the next thing we need to do is give the assessor this list, and they're gonna start crunching numbers for us. Because they're gonna make a list of each property that will show the original values, and then we have to do a guesstimate over the 30 years of what we project the income, the gain in value over that 30-year period. Now, on some of these parcels, like the industrial park, we have 2 projects going in. So we can say, all right, we're going to guess that those 2 buildings will be valued this, and we'll have a real number to put in. But most of these properties, we're just going to look at how the value has risen over the last decade and use a mathematical formula. It's just a guesstimate on that. It's pure guesswork because we won't know until things start happening.
Well, and you're probably assigning a lot of blank, empty properties to
Oh,
the
yeah,
TIF list,
yeah.
because you want
Yeah.
some business to come in and build on
Absolutely.
that. So it's,
Yeah,
May
so
or may
there's,
not.
it may or may not happen.
Yeah.
And that's why we can amend this in the future. I mean, we're trying to, I'm not good at prophecy, but maybe somebody else here is on that or stuff, but so we may have to change things. As we had our best guesses were way off base, so a couple of years from now, we say, what were we thinking, and then we go back and change it.
I know I've asked you this before, but when do you think we could implement the TIF? Like, when do you think
We actually have, well, as soon as it's approved and approved by the state, it's in place.
Which you think will be, what's your
June
strategy?
is, we're aiming for June for the
June.
vote for town.
And then it usually takes about 2 months for the state to look
So
at
that's
it.
not bad. So within a year.
Within a year,
Yeah.
but the thing is that we might not have any money in it.
Right.
For quite some
For
time.
some
No, it won't.
Yeah.
Day one, it has no money.
But we can still start planning,
So
and-
in the history of these things going in front of voters, what is
Oh.
what's the barrier that stops them? What's the
If you
pushback?
type it into Google, one of the first searches that comes up is they're not putting money into schools and things. That was one of the articles that I saw.
there's a lot of things. There's 2 major things. One is that people want to make sure that the money isn't going to the businesses,
Right, it's
Which it
not.
doesn't.
which it doesn't. This is going for infrastructure.
To the town.
Doesn't go directly to a business, and that's a big, it's, well,
That was the old-fashioned way.
yeah. Well, no, it was something that didn't sit well with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the second is that probably people have difficulty getting around the fact that the funds that we capture can only be used for economic development. So
In a
that-
general sense.
Yeah, and as identified in the work plan. So you can't use it for anything outside of that.
Does
It can't
this-
be used for municipal buildings or schools or anything like that. But what it does do is, the positive thing is that since we're capturing that value, all right, that value doesn't get shown on the municipal valuation done by the state.
Oh,
So
Doesn't go to Augusta.
that value that the state does, that's how our
schools.
school formula goes, our county tax
actually-
goes, and that also impacts revenue sharing. So because it doesn't go up,
Effectively,
we
it's
don't
gone-
get,
yeah, there's a net benefit
there is.
Yes,
to the schools.
there is.
And we will, for the 30 years, for each year, we will make assumptions on how much we're saving.
So from the state, if I was on the school board, any
Yeah.
ever again, the,
Join.
right. This is also, it's be very reasonable to present this as a way to hide this tax base
That's
from
right.
the state when they're doing how much money we get.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, of course,
So they give us-
the negative thing for that is that at the end, toward the end of the 30 years, that value is
Yeah.
going to go on the books.
Yeah.
So, and
But
so
that's
there'll
30
be
years
an
we didn't
impact.
have it there, I'll be
Yeah.
dead. So.
Now, but the other flip side is that what we would say is that because this money's going to go into towards economic development promotion, we're going to add new value, new jobs, new municipal tax valuation. So
Right.
at the end, everybody benefits,
Right.
on that, because there will be some more. And there's
Right.
nothing
Need
that says the
jobs.
town can't.
Good
Right
jobs.
now, this is written so 100% of the
Yeah, good
captured
jobs.
value goes into the TIF. In 20 years, we can say, geez, we've got enough money coming in to do our projects. Let's only put in 50% into the TIF and the other 50% into the regular general fund.
Tara brings up another point that I think is interesting. She may have been reading a letter from a wealthy community that's on the positive end. We're on the negative end of state financing, and let's use it.
Point. That's a good point, because it would keep our, what
Right.
we would get from state aid. Our revenue sharing would not go down because of higher valuations, things like that.
Yeah, no, I was just looking, as you know, I was sending you an email yesterday, so I was trying to pull up the statutory language, but Jen and I were just saying, again, on the positive side, if we are creating a lot of economic supports for
Yeah.
the people of Waldoboro and good paying jobs and other attractions that keep people in the communities. I heard this all the time when I was traveling and doing workforce development.
Yeah.
When you hear people that can't buy their basic necessities in their towns or don't even have a movie theater that they can take their kids to. They have to go to the next town. Well, the next town starts looking more attractive.
Yeah.
So when you're putting these things in place or you're giving people jobs, yes, maybe that money doesn't directly go to schools, or like Ted's saying, we're getting some of this money from the state, doing it this way. But you're also having a lot to offer
That's right.
families and people when they're graduating from schools and allowing them to stay here and offering them an attractive community.
Can these benefits somehow help create housing?
I was just asking, I was gonna ask that.
No,
Jeez.
not the way ours won't, but there is a possibility for a TIF to do that. I would, at this point,
But that's
just,
economic development.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
but the way it's written, no, it would not be. No, it would not. But it can,
That's not necessarily true, right? I mean, if you had sewer lines,
well, that's right. There's a secondary benefit, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna
Infrastructure.
say.
Yeah.
Sewer and water, roads,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah.
So
the
we're
housing
part of it.
becomes more feasible and
That's
more
right.
affordable conceivably.
Would there be a difference between individual housing and a fair-sized, low-interest, low-income area in which someone's building mass housing?
No, it's still, they still don't consider it. But
Okay.
what it does do is that this is where, if we have the funds to spend on economic infrastructure from this fund, then that frees up the possibility of other municipal funds to be used for other
Yeah.
projects. The other thing too, and this is the biggest thing, I think, benefit to this, is that this gives us a pool of money to match grant funds. Rockland is putting in a fish pier.
Yes.
Their
Yeah.
TIF is funding a major portion of it. We're working on a TIF in Rockport for a sewer extension. We already have one grant, we're gonna go for an EDA grant, and the match is coming from their TIF.
Yeah.
Without the TIF, There's no way that they could do these projects.
Interesting.
Brunswick does the same thing, I mean,
Well, that's how you sell it in Waldoboro. You say, wait a minute, let me tell you what other towns are doing
yeah.
with
Right.
their TIFs.
So the other, so
I
the
think that's how
other
you sell it.
interesting thing I saw this week was that Camden is developing workforce housing.
Yeah.
That's very interesting that Camden's doing.
Rockland also designated
Workforce
an
housing.
area in
Camden.
their town for a
Right.
special district.
For the habitat.
For the habitat
Yes,
project.
habitat housing. So there's some real
The-
movement.
The other, oh, what was I gonna say?
I'd have one other quick question. If there's a rate increase in town, the rate increase on the properties that are in the TIF, does that go into the TIF
Yeah,
bucket?
yeah.
So that would be the argument for losing tax dollars for other
Right,
things, right?
that's right, absolutely.
So
Well,
that's what you'd
things
have-
that take tax dollars out of our town budget, right? So what's losing access is the county, the state, and the,
Revenue sharing.
right.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things, that will stay in our town as opposed to going out for that period
No, I
of years.
understand that, but I guess what I'm saying, if the town has an amount of money they need to run,
Yeah,
and they have a 3% tax hike.
yeah.
And 1% of that tax hike goes into the TIF budget, then they need a 4% tax hike to really get, or whatever the math is, to get that amount of money to run the town. In other words, the money that's going into the TIF isn't going into the town budget. So if they need.
Right, in the general fund.
In the
Yeah,
general
you're right,
fund.
Right, right.
So
It's-
I could see that would be a
That,
stumbling
many
block.
people say, why isn't that going in? But you counter with that was, well, we're still using this for public purposes. It's just targeted towards economic purposes. So it's money we would have wanted to spend anyway, but it just gives us a separate pot of it on that. Now, at any point in time, the town could take some of that money and put it into the general fund.
If they had
You
to.
can do that.
Yeah.
You have to amend your TIF to do that, on that.
Which goes to the voters.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's not any change has to be voted on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you started mentioning other towns, well, I'll say this question frontwards for a change. I was approached, because I buy fish byproducts, by one of the salmon farm projects.
Yeah.
Are they calling everybody, including you? I mean, before I start scratching my head, has everyone else already scratched theirs?
No, they're reaching out to a lot of people.
That's, yeah.
Yeah,
So you guys have been reached out to?
yeah. We were on the original search group when they were looking for it.
The email to me was 10,000 metric tons of fish, salmon parts,
Yeah.
and 6,000 metric tons of dewatered salmon poop.
Yeah, they're looking for places for it to go, locally if possible.
Well,
It just saves
that's an
on shipping costs.
opportunity
'Cause
for,
I guess they have places up in Aroostook,
Yeah.
but,
it's an opportunity to.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
For businesses. I mean, there should be like a clearinghouse or someplace people can go to look for opportunities somehow, because when we had our last WBA meeting, Topsail Farm was an example. They were so busy this season, and they said, we are just, a glamping, a camping place and an event kind of place with weddings and so forth. But we really need more restaurants and more either an inn or B&Bs for
Yeah.
our customers. They're asking us all the time, and we'd like to send them
Local. yeah.
locally, and there's just not much for people to. So there's an opportunity for people who are thinking about the future.
Yep,
As more of this happens, and as new opportunities happen, we need a better way of communicating opportunities.
that's part of our tourist strategy, and it's also asset-based. Because
Right.
that's one of our assets, and we're growing that asset, so it's something that we can do that's doable here.
Right.
I just want to say one quick thing. The town of China, actually, we wrote the TIF for them 4 years ago. They took advantage of a CMP transmission line, so they captured the value of that. They get $360,000 per year put into that TIF, and they were lucky. If it captured it, the line was there, the new value. They're doing projects all over the place that they would never be able to do
Because of
Right.
CMP's investment?
because of CMP's
Where
investment.
did
Okay, so that
CMP
brings
get
up
money?
the initiative that's coming up on the ballot for
Oh,
the
the
right of way
corridor.
through.
Yeah, if we're not in that corridor, we
Through the
can't
Forks?
take advantage of that.
Down through the Forks?
I don't know exactly what it is.
That doesn't come through our
Doesn't
area.
come
If it
through.
did, we could capture that. That would be we would certainly take advantage. A gas line, when the gas lines went in, the corridors went in, towns created TIF district, captured that new value and put it into, so you use what you've got.
I believe for this TIF, we included one of the CMP corridors, one more close to the
Oh.
Route 1, as well as the railroad, since
Good.
down east is gonna be making
But
that
that, we would
investment.
only, if they added something in that, then
Yeah.
we would be able to capture that.
Are both sides, stupid question, are both sides of the industrial park, both sides of the
Yeah.
track covered, like the ponds are there too?
Yeah, we did the, across street there, yeah.
And what-
Max, you handed out oh, sorry.
Yeah, that-
finished already?
And the farm on the other side of
Yeah,
North?
we did the farm and the former.
So we're going to set up time at our next meeting to go
Okay.
over the map.
All right, sorry.
All right. So let's not dissect it now.
Good idea.
All right. So Max, you sent out this update, I guess?
No, this is suggestions from
That's
Tara.
just the suggestions Tara made.
Okay.
I think those will be included next time if
Yeah.
there were any viable options, so.
But I just wanted to hand that out just so people got an idea of what was being talked about earlier.
Okay, good.
And as far as the tip and the talking points, I'm happy to do some research on that and get together like a one-pager myth fact or something, just so
idea.
we have that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can present something
Please.
and
Yeah.
then you can tear it apart next
Absolutely,
meeting.
that's a great idea.
And it sounds from what you've said that there's a lot of examples that other towns have already implemented and what they're doing and
This
what,
is
how
not,
they're
it's in the
benefiting.
newspaper all the time.
Yeah.
If people,
But it still will be an educational project.
We can use the stuff that's most relevant to Waldoboro, and I would expect that my subject matter experts here would be able to weigh in on that, but I can grab something.
What's the status of the printing of our brochure?
We're going to get there. Hang on.
Okay.
We'll get there. Okay, so, so this is more related to the project side of the TIF?
So, I thought the homework was that we were supposed to go through our last draft and just see if we needed to add anything else in the
Did you-
sections. So that is what I did, is just went through and said, add new section. I think Julie had asked, like, take out a couple of things under community-wide municipal investments.
Yeah, we did that in the second.
So it, just basically making updates to the working draft of
Okay, got it.
this plan. So that's what those were.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll put these changes in, Tara.
And we all have the changes? Have we seen
Would it be a
them?
good idea to redistribute the working draft just so that we have them updated?
We did.
Was that in this last
It
segment?
should have been in the email that Jan sent out last.
That's what that was, okay.
Okay, so, right, so the changes are in here.
Yeah, and we're gonna send out another version. Version number 4 will come out within.
So that's what,
Week or
that's
so.
the attachment that came
Yep.
with this.
There'll be a date on it too, so you can.
We can attach that. Good. All right, thank you. Julie's not here. Can somebody do Town of Waldoboro update? Not sure. Anything you guys know about that we should know about?
The RFP for the LED lights will be sent
Yeah,
out
that's
again.
sent out again.
Do you have a solid,
I read over 2 of the proposals that we got back from earlier in the year.
Excellent.
And they're so far apart in terms of what they're offering that, it's,
wonder if I look at the same figures, same situation?
yeah, it was like apples and
So the
oranges.
question I beg to ask should be, did we define what we're looking for well enough so that they could be narrowed into, or should they have been narrower? That's the
Yeah,
question.
yeah, yep.
I
Was-
guess you have to put more definition into what the scope of the.
was it from
RFP.
were both from the same company?
No.
No? So that they were apples and oranges?
Yeah, Mid-Coast Energy Systems and DS Brogdon Company.
Which one is the one that made the presentation here? I don't remember the name.
They didn't put anything in?
No,
We haven't gotten their songs?
no.
I thought they did. They did.
No, I don't think so. The one
If they
that
did,
Bob,
we don't have it.
The one that Bob
I haven't seen
brought
it.
in.
Yeah.
I thought they had one of the two.
But somewhere like, one of the proposals was like all new fixtures, and the other proposal was
Yeah, I
like
think that-
replacing,
The RFP was for the services, and then they were gonna have to negotiate the cost of the actual lights, because they haven't selected the lights yet. So that would be something they would negotiate with the company. Because there was no,
So the town is not equipped with a consultant to define the specs well enough.
Yeah.
That's what the board's got.
and that, once they figure out physically what kind of lights would go where, what design they were, then they could get prices for those.
yeah.
well, to take the proposal,
Bless you.
that was a request and ask of the RFP to suggest
Yeah, oh, yeah,
alternatives.
yeah.
Because we don't have the expertise in-house.
And then you're
we
still gonna
assumed
have
that
to
we
go
would get a
through.
range of things and then condense that and maybe refine
There's a lot
specifically.
of different manufacturers out there, so
Yeah,
the prices
This is a
vary.
huge thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing is you take advantage of the proposals you have and say, okay, well, what's the direction we want to go in, and kind of pick them apart and pick the best of what you have and go back out for another round.
And so the only other comment I have from listening to the presentation that Bob Butler sponsored, from that provider, I thought he was pretty well focused on a good overview of what this town needs and why didn't they respond. I thought they were one of the two responding.
There was one question, one company that sent a number of questions that have yet to be responded to in September or something.
Yeah.
Julie forwarded that on to the committee, the Renewable Committee. And that response hasn't been forthcoming that I know of from the town yet.
Too bad Julie isn't
So-
here to find some of these.
She's recovering from gallbladder surgery.
Oh,
my.
dear.
Ooh, I had no idea.
You guys
did not
missed
know.
that.
Yes, indeed.
Surprise event?
Yep.
Tend to be.
Yeah, she's at home. That was this week.
I was sitting with her not that many days ago.
No fried
In the
clams
middle
this
of the
week.
night, they took her over to Miles.
For a while.
Yep.
Oh dear.
Or ever.
All right, anything else?
Town report, nothing that I can think of.
Okay.
Is there an action item that we should agree to try and get some volunteers for that committee?
Yeah,
The land
absolutely.
What do you want
Which
us?
committee, George?
The land use
Land use,
implementation committee. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what that action, I don't know what the motion is, but I sure wish we could get
If you
that
can
also.
recommend people, yeah, we've beat down the bushes, we've asked people
Yeah.
already, so.
Probably counterproductive to.
Do you want to
get
come to the
members of my
WBA
family.
meeting on Wednesday?
This
It's at the
Wednesday?
brewery, next Wednesday.
Yeah, yeah.
Send him and he can do an announcement,
Yeah.
and we can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
We're having the guy from Lincoln, not Lincoln County, from the guy who comes into Lincoln County twice a month to advise businesses on bidding for federal, state, and local contracts as an income stream. So he's our main speaker, and
Great.
so it'll
Good.
fit right in.
What was the region of town that the predominance of active members came from, the 7 or 8 that have, somebody mentioned they're all coming from the same place in town?
Well, I think that when I spoke to Julie pre-operatively, I guess, it sounded like there was some volunteers, but they're all right from Dutch Neck. which-
Oh, it's the Dutch Neck contingent.
No, I don't live in, I'm not in Dutch Neck.
Yeah, volunteered?
We're very
I
active.
didn't mean it quite that way.
In addition, I know somebody else who's on that, already volunteered, who isn't on Dutch Neck too.
Okay, well then.
So basically, what we need to do is we need to have a good representation of not just where people live, but also what functions, what they know about, what their interests might be.
One of the functions I'd like to see brought up at your meeting is how the expert that you're talking to is going to relate to new solar power, and how we can relate businesses and homes to solar power here in Waldoboro at a much greater level than we've had in the past, which has been relatively minimal because people aren't aware of just how valuable it is. I see that as a direction for the future that we can't ignore.
Right, the guy who's coming in has no background in that, he's a.
Oh, my.
He's not for that, Ted, he's coming in to help, he's gonna, and tell people about opportunities that might be available for a variety of businesses in federal contracting, state contracting, or local contracting. So he's looking, so the businesses in Brunswick, for example.
Yeah.
They got, one business, a particular small business, found a seasonal contract that provided another income stream for that business that didn't involve, a wholesale change of the business or taking on a massive amount of responsibility to that entity, but was like a piece of the puzzle. You know how we're all trying to survive seasonally because of the way things work? So this is just another opportunity for businesses to explore with some coaching and help on trying to navigate that world. That world is crazy, very detailed and difficult sometimes, bureaucratic, but this person, their whole job is to help people navigate and succeed in these efforts. So it's not in particular one type, it's an overview of all types.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just tend to get a little more specific.
Right, well, you could come and ask him about that. I mean, you could say, what is the opportunity for that?
There's also fiber optic cable.
Right, well, everybody's talking about that everywhere.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So one thing about, when you talk about solar.
Yes.
If your state is not behind.
Right.
Individuals
That's-
adding solar to
that's-
their homes.
that's where-
It doesn't happen.
That's
Right.
where
That's right.
the election.
That's a fact.
And federal too.
Right,
That's where this
And right now, we're,
Because the tax laws, like tax credits.
Right.
This
if you
upcoming
wanted to
elections.
burn coal today, you'd have more luck.
I'm not sure where it is on the agenda for your meeting or this meeting, but I was listening to the governor's debates, and
Me too.
there's a fairly noticeable range in how they view solar power. We have to pay tariffs now on some raw materials we never used to have to pay them on,
Yeah.
which is gonna cost us or somebody money. There's a tremendous significance to the midterm voting.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure if that's appropriate here or at a business meeting, but there's tangible impacts to this next vote.
Yeah.
Short-term and long-term, really long-term.
Precisely.
Anyway.
But that's a good way of putting it.
Thank you.
No, seriously, I mean,
it's-
when you're in business and you're involved in a bunch of, like, you get product and materials from everywhere.
Yeah,
And so you have to keep your eye on the ball.
we buy a significant number of dollars from China that just cut.
Oh,
Yeah.
my sympathy.
Boy, that's a big one.
So it matters,
boy.
the bottom line. I mean, we're so interconnected everywhere.
It's the top and bottom line,
Right.
because if someone can't buy it, we can't make any money on it.
Right.
All right.
And I might not make a meeting, but I'll try.
Oh, it'd be good.
So that brings us to the Communication
Okay.
Technology Committee.
Yeah, I'll give an update on that. Well, we're still focused in on trying to get the last known area in the town that has qualifications for broadband by our existing provider Spectrum in place. We're at the final stages, I might add, and a good note is that we have a survey letter that they wish to have filled out by the residents of the road that has the density, which is Chapel Road. And once that's filled out, they have everything they need to go ahead.
Great.
So in the broadest of strokes, does this mean Spectrum is coming to the front?
Coming to the front on this particular remaining stretch of road. And I'm sitting this one out because I spent too much time on beating them up for the last couple of years.
Well, no, and that's where my question's coming from.
And
really.
so it's being handled by Julie and Ruben Maher, who have no legacy like me, I do.
That's a good way to put that, too. Very good way to put that.
And but I am aware of the details that it will suffice to get us coverage on every road that's within the franchise, the scope of the intent of the franchise agreement with Spectrum.
So to those of us who've been watching this, scratching his head, not understanding half the lingo, this is good.
Yeah.
Yes, and it will then leave us with the smaller pockets which are under let's say, developed, meaning there are homes, like 3 or 4 homes on a little stretch of road.
Yeah.
And we've actually identified, I've identified every one of them, and there's about 4 or 5 of them, and they're all within short reaches of the existing cable system.
To the extent we could learn from this, what changed that this situation has gotten better? Is it that you completed your legacy effort, or that you stopped? I mean, what changed to get this?
What changed,
moving?
number one, we were at a point where in July, if you were at the select board meeting, I stood up and said, well, I think we should stop our efforts working with Spectrum, because we're not getting anywhere. They're ignoring me. They're ignoring the community. So with that, Julie then stepped up with this idea to try a new approach, and they did.
Right, so a combination of
So,
carrots
yeah,
and
there was a
sticks.
change because the charter took over from Time Warner, and the Time Warner person is no longer there, who I've been focused on. You see, originally, with the way this whole thing began, the whole unserved area of Waldoboro was held captive by Spectrum, because if you called up and said, I want to get my neighbors and I together like I did up in North Waldoboro, they said, well, we don't do it that way. We will give each one of you an individual bid. And they quoted me $36,000 to get connected. And that's the way they've been handling it traditionally.
Wow.
And
That
so
was too
I
big of a
tried to
question for this
initiate a
meeting.
collective arrangement so that we could get a Connect Me grant to do this. And the Connect Me grant people and the advocate's office was in favor of this model as a future. And I worked on this, and there was no traction, but there was a lot of good talk, but nothing happened. So then we switched gears here to take the map that the town did, that I did with one other person in the fire department. We did a complete map of the town as to what areas are served by what kind of transmission medium for broadband. And we focused in to finish up. And this is what we're trying to do, is finish up. Now, when I say finish up, everybody's probably wondering, well, we don't have fiber to every home. Well, that's right, we don't. And as long as you have a captive cable provider like we do in this town, where over 80% of the road's already covered by cable, and we have LCI, who's done a great job of covering the unserved areas with a grant, which is fiber, we're in a situation where, well, what do we do next to get everybody connected to fiber? Well, I think what we do next is try and get involved in a more regional geographical area initiative to get this federal money that's floating around, and to bring more dark fiber into this area to either expand the main 3-ring binder program, main fiber company, which we already have a run going through on Route 1.
Goes right over my house.
And so if we have more fiber into the communities that's dark, that anyone can use, meaning LCI can lease some of the fibers on it, Spectrum can lease this fiber, or anyone else. Then you can get the benefits of optical fiber connectivity to the home on a more competitive basis. And that's the next step.
That was too big of a question for your agenda.
That's it.
All right, just a
that
quick
it?
thing on the fiber. There is a grant for planning, Maine Community Foundation Betterment Fund.
Yep.
It's $15,000, but it would tie into what you just said, John, is that it would give the town the ability to hire a consultant to do that plan for Waldoboro and potentially the region.
It should actually be a regional consultant for more than just Waldoboro.
Well,
Yeah.
but somebody has to apply, and there's only, one town would apply, you can apply for,
Oh,
but you're not gonna get any more than 15,000.
So each town could could get together with a consultant to do a regional area, and each one would be given an increment of 15?
No, just one pot of 15,000. You just get one grant of 15,000. It's not a
Who
lot of
gets-
money.
No, if each town can't apply for it?
Each town could apply for it, too.
That's what he was
There's a
saying.
limited amount of money.
Yeah.
So you're more competitive if you,
Right. So just to overamplify
It's
one
just
more
it's
statement, and
funds
I'll make it as
available.
quick as possible. These little pockets of people are intensely interested in getting connectivity with Spectrum.
Yeah.
But they don't want to have to pay for it themselves if everybody else has been getting it without having to pay for it themselves. And there's 4 here, there's 5 there. There's probably about 20 people that I can think of that fit in that category. That's it.
Thank you for your homework.
All right, thank you. Seth, Renewables?
So, as many of you noticed, I've been a little bit absent because of family stuff pretty much all summer. But there are a couple of things that I can report on. The solar array seems to be fixed. The reporting seems to be miraculously better. Don't know why. Nobody is explaining that.
I did look at clicked on that link on our
Yep.
town webpage
Yep.
and it looked great.
Looks beautiful. We're
Yep.
putting lots of power.
Yep.
There was a little glitch this week where one of the 3 new transformers dropped a phase, and the whole transfer station went down. They had 110 off one link of the power, but all the 3 phases went down. And the result was the array miraculously went offline, and so it was flatlined. And so I have automatic reporting that tells me when that happened. So I asked Johnny Daigle, and he reported that a transformer broke. Sundog didn't even notice it, interestingly enough.
The transformer where?
At the transfer station, they upgraded the 3-phase transformers.
So the utility transformer?
The utility transformer, yes.
Got
Yeah, so 2 out of 3 panels at the transfer station went dead. And therefore, there was no place for the power to go out of the array. The array is fine. Came back online, it's doing well. So that's good. Julie had reported, I think, I know I did, maybe in an August meeting, that the kiosk will be moved. Hasn't happened yet, don't know how to push that. I think Bob was encouraging it to be moved, and maybe he now has a little more throw weight, and that'll get moved. There was an odd comment made that, well, nobody notices it, we never get comments on it. Well, that's because nobody notices you walk right by it, instead of see it where you're standing, waiting in line. That's the whole point, sort of a interesting rhetorical something. Anyway, the MSAD 40 project that I've been working with Steve Nolan and Carla, the business manager at MSAD 40, is creeping along, mostly limited by my bandwidth. I just haven't had any. I've downloaded most of the data, the aggregate data, but there's a glitch in CMP's so-called energy manager that doesn't allow you to download the analysis except in monthly chunks instead of yearly chunks. And there are 16 meters, each meter for each month. You do the math. Each one takes 5 to 10 minutes to download that data. I don't have time to do that. So we're gonna have to figure out something. Their tech support is on it. They owe us a response as to how we can do this more efficiently. I heard from Ron this week that he believes Leadvance may say something within the next 2 weeks. We don't know what.
And we did get an update I'll read that in a little bit. An
Oh, that'd
update
be
from
great.
Ron last night.
Okay, good.
Wonderful.
Good. And the reason that has implications is there is some thought, as you may recall, that we could repurpose that location if Leadvance was to let us for quite a large array, measured in megawatts, that may very well encompass the demands of the PPA production, would encompass demands for the MSAD 40 school consumption, which is very large. And just as a reminder, the big gotcha there is with net metering, you can't offset demand charges. So the Miller School, the high school, the Warren School, they're all exempt. You can't really, we can only capture half of the value we would like to there. So it's a real problem.
When you say exempt, you mean only half?
You can't pay the demand charges with solar
Right,
power.
but so they're not, they get some benefit, just not,
You get half the benefit.
Yeah.
You get the energy benefit, yeah. The municipal building, not very much has happened on my end about contacting vendors regarding lighting and the heat pump, the replacement for the heat pump stuff. It's not heat pump stuff, but we need to replace the HVAC systems in the building, and I hope, my daughter's just returned to Algeria, so I think I'll have more time soon, like within a month, to get back, and I apologize for the delays. With the LED lighting, we've discussed it briefly. We got 2 sort of odd responses, not one from the major thing that the vendor that kicked this whole thing off that Bob brought in, don't know why. Some follow-up needs to be done there. I think the follow-up should come from the town offices, not the Renewable Energy Subcommittee. That's the proper channel. They've been very busy. They just need to be pushed a little bit or helped a little bit and reminded. The date
And I'll send Julie a response on these 2 that I reviewed and let her know.
Yes,
Yeah.
good. And we did have a series of sort of complicated questions that need to be responded to, and I will be trying to do that. helping Julie do that. They have to go through her, but it's going to take a piece of work. I don't know, did Julie distribute that list to this group? Maybe not, that list of questions? No, probably not.
I almost think I saw it and then said, oh my God, I'm not.
Yeah,
thinking
that
of
was
this.
my response. Oh, my God. But it needs to be done. We need to do it. I think the proposal is asking, in a sophisticated way, some hard questions for the vendors to answer and providing them with a range of opportunities. That's why we got such different responses.
Right.
One just gave us sort of an off-the-cuff, this is our standard, we'll change your light bulbs, which is not what we want at all.
Right.
And we were disappointed that we didn't get more people responding to the interesting connectivity and environmental monitoring stuff that we asked, which is very important for the town. So, anyway, and that's pretty much all I have. In closing, I want to reinforce George's statement or comment. We have a huge opportunity in November to change the direction of energy in this state. It is enormous.
Yeah.
Who are you
It's even-
backing? Who are you backing?
I'm Mills and Evangelos, but it's important to note for us locally, right here, that we have had the opportunity of our representative doing the right thing, which hasn't worked, in spite of the rhetoric. We now have a known quantity, and this is a pitch for the town, not for me politically. We now have the potential for an advocate for solar power, a really strong, financially sophisticated doer. That's Jeff Evangelos.
Here.
I hope everybody will think deeply about who they vote for. This town is committed to solar power. We want to grow it, energy efficiency. There is an obvious two-candidate pair, not in any way related, that care about this in a very dramatic and forward-looking way. And this is, as Judge said, this is a critical juncture.
Near and
This is
long-term impacts.
huge long-term impacts if this goes right. We're talking about distributed energy, distributed production, solar, all kinds of wind, offshore. Everything changes at this election if we do it right. So just locally here in Maine, in our town. So really important to vote.
All right. Thank you.
Get your 18 years old kids out there voting. Get the kids out. Why won't the kids vote? This is an economic development issue, actually. Why don't kids 18 to 35 vote?
And
They're not,
You probably do, but you're the exception. What's going on? This is real. It is an economic development because it's their future we're
30
talking
under
about.
35.
no civics in
You're
high
cutting
school.
right into their video game time.
Well, that's like
Ted
mean.
just said the answer.
Yeah.
No civics classes in high
Right,
schools anymore.
right.
They're
And
gone.
also not realizing the impact.
Well,
Not
that's because
believing,
of-
not
yes.
believing. They've seen so much growing up.
Yeah.
They just don't believe in it anymore.
I think that's a true statement.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's discouraging, but I'll never give up my right to vote. I will never do that.
Yeah,
It's all I got.
yeah.
I'm gonna do it.
What if you're 18 and you carefully read the reports about what's gonna happen in the next 20 years with the climate?
Yeah, who'd wanna,
Why get off your deck chair on the Titanic if you know you're gonna hit the iceberg anyway? So I'm
well, actually,
terribly
did
serious.
you, I actually saw something in an article that said that,
I think that's the answer, is the point. is
right, I
what
mean,
the-
I saw something that was written about the people handling policy in, the federal policy, who said straight out, well, it's too late anyway now, so why
Yeah.
do this?
The more, it's more the point to invest in.
I don't even believe, I mean, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What?
We're willing to cash it in. We can work on that.
I'm not. I don't even care if I'll be dead.
All right.
I don't care. I just
All
am
right,
not
I'm gonna
ever.
run. You gotta run, okay.
Yep.
So, real quick, pamphlet. So,
So much.
what's going on with the pamphlet? Thanks, guys. It's okay, we got a couple of early
Right.
birds.
Yeah, pamphlet. So, last meeting that, from what I gather, that was approved, that was accepted, so that was more just printed, so you and I believe Seth wasn't here last meeting, right?
They wouldn't know.
So just so you two could see what the final
Thank you.
It
product.
was approved. We voted the approval
Good
and,
deal.
and Marcia got us estimates and I think that
There was
that's
some
a,
discussion about whether we should get another estimate, or,
no.
No, I
No,
asked
you-
that question, but it turned out.
It was
She
Lincoln
asked
County.
the,
Lincoln
she
County.
asked the entity he suggested.
Yeah.
That's who she asked.
oh, okay, good.
So we don't have an issue with that.
There was a
So,
question of numbers too, and I think the general consensus was do the bigger number, not the less. It's much cheaper per copy.
Right. And also, it wasn't a lot of money.
No, it was short money.
And we confirm that we have the money in the town hopper to, I know they.
We have our line item.
I know they allocated money for it.
We have a line item for that.
Should, and I will double check that, but
So
Should-
we're ready to pull the trigger?
Ready to pull the trigger?
does
Should we
this,
do it? Do we need a motion and
does it,
vote?
does it need to go to the select board for approval or anything?
No,
or
that's
I don't
Julie,
think
it's
so.
Julie's money.
just
And
Julie's?
I mean, it's in a line item for us. It was planned for a year ago. So,
So do we need to
I'll
bless
have-
it and say yes?
we already voted last meeting to approve that and
To
said
approve
yes.
the printing
Right,
expense.
and it's not our decision to, we can make a recommendation for how many, but
Yeah, there should be money, and I would have to check with Julie next week, of course, because of the circumstances, but
yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Great, all right. Street lighting, I think we'll just table that till next meeting, and then real quick to get into the record, this is Ron Phillips' response, if I get my phone to open.
While it's opening, what was the
Here we go.
two-word answer on the brochures?
Start again.
Go to printing. Go to printing, 3 words.
It's a fait accompli, done. Details of the
They're
game.
mean.
When will we have them to give to people?
It takes them a couple days to print.
Yeah,
everything.
Marcia got the
How many are we
quotes.
printing, by the way?
2,000, was it? What was the larger number?
I can't remember.
2,000, the values were, there was the 1,000 and there was the 2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then my only thing was, we gotta buy a bunch of little plastic holders.
Yeah, how is the distribution gonna be done? What's the plan for that?
I didn't mean to run backwards. I'm
We
sorry.
didn't do a
Oh,
plan
no.
for distribution.
Hmm?
We did not talk about a plan for
Wasn't
distribution.
defined.
Well, we need one, because we're gonna have 2,000
I'm-
things in boxes.
I mean, there's a one from, there's a, what, you gave it to me like in June for the WBA, with all the brochures, so that's one, a rack.
Oh, we have
That's the word.
we have a rack out here that it
A-rack
could
is another thing.
go on. But the other thing is that the select board were talking about whether the town should become a member of the Maine Tourism Association so that they can get it in the highway kiosks.
The answer to that's yes. Yeah.
Well, they have to vote on that, so
Oh,
Bob
boy.
Butler's doing research on what a municipality would get charged.
So what about linking it so that it can be accessed by the internet?
Well, I think
Will be-
that's,
It'll also be uploaded to the town website, I think
Right.
Marcia said that
right,
it's already on the WBA website.
yep.
Speaking of which, I wanna make a request for new business.
Well, I interrupted, you were downloading.
We're not there yet.
Wait,
We're not there yet.
Okay, I just
Ron.
want to not
Yeah.
forget it.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. We're not there
You're gonna
yet.
get Ron's comments.
So we're good on the brochures? So here's Ron's comments. Hi, Jan. I'm in Utah. Here's my report. Joe Cluche continues to show interest in building space and improvements. I think that's his trial lot.
Joe
Yeah,
Cloutier,
first floor.
good friend of mine.
How do you say it?
Cloutier.
It's not how you should pronounce it.
Yeah.
Cloutier?
Cluche. It's
They
French.
call it the Bremen Road too, so.
He said Julie may add more. Julie's not here. Still awaiting Ledvance due to their staffing changes, but assured they'll reach out. Waldo Theater making good progress on proposals, and support from town will be important, as well as the WBA. We may want to invite Maine Development Foundation and learn more about their downtown program. Julie knows about this. Also curious how we'll deal with parking. It's a good question.
Have you seen it recently?
Nothing at this time to share about AD Gray. That's it for now, my best friend. So actually, the parking, I think he's talking about parking for Waldo?
In the village.
The village.
Actually,
Oh, parking in the
Waldo,
village?
Waldo has their own back lot. It's not Waldo, it's the village is the parking issue.
They did
Yeah.
about
All those
25
apartments.
parking spaces behind the theater.
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
people park up and down Main Street.
Oh, yes.
I'm not worried about parking for the theater because when it was going full blast, we had no issues. What's really different and changed is parking in the village. With bringing on those new apartments
Yes.
above the laundromat,
Yes.
there's
I see what you're
10
saying.
right now,
10 to 12.
and the parking in front of the building that was sold right next to the laundromat
Yep.
is gone. That's her property.
Yeah.
She's cut it off. There's 6 spaces or 5 spaces right there that are gone.
Does the width of the owned roadway come into play when she's putting flower pots there?
I have no idea. I don't know about that. All I know is I drove through the other morning and it was crazy. And it was, I was like, I'm like looking around going, ooh, this is not gonna bode well.
And it's a
was no-
laundromat still,
Yeah,
so you still got,
there's no room.
Well, just to augment that observation, I have noticed twice a week on the Jefferson side of the street, through the intersection going toward the center of town, we have had no parking any number of times all
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
And it's not tourist traffic, it's local
Yeah.
traffic.
Right.
People are parking illegally in front, close illegally, in unmarked spots in front of the pizza store,
Yeah.
up in front of Philippe's building, which pisses him off.
Yep.
The rear lot down by the donation clothing thing, sometimes it's 2/3 full.
Yeah,
That means there's a remarkable surge in local activity
Right.
in the district.
I had a chat with Freddie on that very topic a few days ago. He doesn't want to change a thing with his property.
Who?
Storer,
Oh, Fred, yeah. He's sticking the mud.
he owns a big piece of property.
Yep.
It's absolutely unused totally, and it's an uphill climb to get out of there, but he wants to keep it open for his business.
yeah.
who owns that half-built property beside the entrance to his?
He
That's
owns it.
his.
Oh, he owns that half-built property too?
Yes.
The foundation.
He
Yes.
took down,
Just a
he took down
foundation.
a,
It's a placeholder.
he took down a very old building that was falling in.
Weston's
Oh, and it
Hardware.
was sitting, on- and that's the foundation for it.
There's a
Got it.
storage for
Well, they
Weston's
built a new
Hardware.
foundation.
Right,
Oh,
right,
yeah,
And
that's
they
what I
capped
thought, it was
they
new,
decked
right?
it, And then just sealed
And then they just sealed it.
yeah.
it, till the market improves.
Did you notice how beautiful the house next to the laundromat is looking? That lady has,
Cleaning up.
all summer long, that lady who just bought it put a lot of
Tremendous
resources,
improvement. I just wish you could-
beautiful.
I just wish you could park in front of it.
I know, but no, but it's gorgeous. She brought a house that was dying.
Yeah, Absolutely,
life.
right on the edge.
I think that was meant more as a real question about if the town owns the right of way, are there some are there some straight along the road parking spots there?
Who knows?
So, well, somebody in the town.
I think there are, but they've historically been in
Well,
Noah's
that's
End.
because they were taking her front lawn.
That's
Yeah.
If we accept that she wants to have her front lawn back, which is, I mean, she's done a beautiful job there, but does that preclude parking
No,
going the other direction?
definitely not. And you can park right down through, I think, in front of the brick house to the south of her. Those are designated street
It's
parking.
getting tricky to have lunch parking.
Yeah, it
Well,
really
what
is.
the town is gonna have to do is clarify, maybe with curbing, what's
Right.
her parking and
Yeah,
you can't.
I think that's,
Can you not park behind, on the other side of, like, down by the riverside? Isn't there parking behind?
Ted's lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
can
own
Is
park-
that public parking?
Yeah,
Yes.
Pseudo-public.
We've-
well,
Ted's
it's
lot.
Ted's,
Ted's
We've
lot.
allowed the public to park there
Right.
since I've owned it.
right.
It was a means of getting the
it's
employees off the street
half
so
or
that they
two-thirds
weren't,
full locally.
so the employees
Right.
weren't blocking the whole area
Right.
completely.
It's used heavily,
used, yes.
heavily used, as is now behind the Jefferson Street building.
Taction. yeah, it's-
Taction,
or Jefferson.
it's heavily
I
used
seen
now.
it filled completely.
Yeah.
So we need
recently
a
as
town,
last
we need a
week.
town
Yes.
parking lot,
Yeah.
right, is what we need?
Well, there's no land for it.
There's no land.
well, and an escalator if we do. As the state ages, the hill gets steeper.
An escalator. An
What?
outdoor.
You've never been to Quebec? Quebec City.
Or Pittsburgh, lots of cities, Pittsburgh have
Oh,
trams that
sorry.
go up the hillside.
Oh, man, that would be fun.
Another note on house improvement, the house next door to us, the little red house, sold, and
Just
the young
sold.
man that bought that has been working on that and doing improvements on
Yeah.
that home as well. So
Kyle
it's
sold
great.
it. Kyle got it sold.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was Dr. Waterman's office, and then
Yes.
there was a 4,000-gallon tank in the downstairs of that one.
Really?
That's now, I've made use of it. Yeah, it's an amazing piece of property.
Yeah, yeah, that property goes way back too. It's nice property. So it's good to see a young guy buy it and put some elbow grease into it.
Thank you for
Are
that.
you guys still looking into doing a taco restaurant?
We're, no, in fact.
Oh, after all that
All that.
excitement.
In fact, the story gets even better because my son-in-law and daughter-in-law have decided to move to Mexico.
Wow.
and do an authentic.
Oh, my
The country
God.
of
Yeah.
Mexico?
She's from Mexico.
No, Mexico, Maine.
So, I mean, that was the whole taco idea, was authentic Mexican,
Yeah,
not like your Taco Bell tacos, like,
right. The real thing.
the real thing, yeah. So that, but you know, things change quick, so it's still an option out there, so.
Are the Mexicans letting people immigrate to Mexico?
There's,
No, there's a wall.
there's an amazing, there's an
Got a
amazing,
door in the wall.
there's an amazing video right now about Americans, Canadians, and Brits moving to Mexico. So not northern Mexico, but central Mexico,
Yeah.
which is actually quite nice. And, you know, you can live for $1,000 a month. And people are doing that. People are like,
Nova Scotia's looking awful.
Belize,
Yes, it is.
Belize and Costa Rica.
Yes,
also.
Nova Scotia?
is.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It's,
All low cost.
it's Maine on steroids, right?
Well,
Maine in a permanent.
Healthcare
and cannabis.
and
Which we do not condone. We're recording, guys.
it was just a statement of fact.
There's business development, we have a new competitor for who wants to live where.
Seth, did you say you wanted something
Yeah, so
added on to new
we're at
business?
new business now,
Yeah,
so.
what was it?
My head.
It's tough when you get old.
Oh, jeez.
Who's old? I'm up to 68 next week. No, what was it? It was,
70 last week.
I'll
No?
have to email you.
All right. Any other new business?
You shouldn't cut me off.
Yeah, right, forget.
Don't think of it as cutting it off, think of it as derailing it.
Very quickly.
Yep.
So last meeting, there was talks on the booklets that was supposed to be paired with the brochure.
Right. So there is supposed to be a detailed booklet on how to do business in Waldoboro. And we understood there would be a booklet and a pamphlet. The pamphlet was kind of a rah-rah about bringing your business to Waldoboro, which is what this pamphlet is. It's not a detailed how-to.
It's a
So-
why.
So we do need a detailed how-to booklet. So once they read this and go, wow, this is great, and
Then
they
you
email
hand them the
you,
booklet.
then you are going to email them a booklet to say, this is what you have to do.
And that,
Not a land use ordinance.
Just as a
No, 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 no,
historical
no.
reference, Jan, the planning board, some time ago, had suggested and initiated a process to do that with the planner before Max.
Yeah.
A step-by-step how to do it, easy one-page guide, basically. Here are the
To be
bullets of
included
business.
to be included in that booklet.
No, such
it's
that
gone
somebody
back
who
and forth.
came here
Yeah.
was handed by the planning office, this is how to do it, and then the planning office would answer any number of questions they had. But it would be a straightforward
Right. We talked about
checklist,
that last month
basically.
and we went back to, that's great for dealing with the planning board stuff, but there's lots of other things that people want to know.
This wasn't just about planning board, this was how to
Right.
bring a business to town, of which the planning board is just one part.
Right, so we talked about that, and that is the job of the Economic Development Committee, because
Sure.
it was charged by the comp plan in 1998,
Okay.
and the Economic Development Committee never did it, and that's why we've been doing that. It wasn't ever supposed to be originally a rah-rah brochure, that was Emily's idea, and that supplanted our actual task, which never happened in a year and a half, so.
But still
we
is,
have
but
to-
still is,
It's our task.
it's still our task.
And so we had brought in before, originally, several examples of what other towns have
You
offered.
just download them. Just go to, like,
Right.
Damerscott had a nice one.
Right,
Would it-
Brunswick has a good
Brunswick,
one.
yeah.
Would it be impacted, would the words be impacted by the fruit of this committee that's gonna look at the land use ordinance?
I don't think, it's not so much here's the ordinance, it's, what it is how do you navigate through town? What are the
Would it-
kinds of things you have to
Would there
hit?
be any, I guess it wouldn't have a lot of general information. If there was general information in the first two paragraphs, it might be impacted by.
Why don't you take a look at what other towns have and then come back and, yeah, and then we'll figure out what we have to do. Because we can actually, use formats or whatever, take a look. I mean, eventually, we're gonna get a new website eventually, and then it will hopefully, be easy for people to find stuff.
And I don't think we're in a place now where we could take it on, but maybe a couple of meetings down the road, we'll be able to take it
Can
on
you,
again.
Collect some samples?
I'll try to find what Emily gave us. I know that Mary Ellen Barnes gave us a bunch of things.
I would go and get new ones. I would go
Yeah,
and
we'd
get,
have to get new ones, it's
I
been
would
too
just get
long.
new ones.
Yeah.
And they're easy,
Wanna
they're
have
easy to get.
time
So
to-
meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So
everybody.
moved. Thank you.
So, you know, one thing that, this wasn't what I was thinking about new business, I can't recall it. But one thing we really do need, and this brings up the Topsail Farm issue,